Intelligence gathering for corrections equals good police work by our correctional officers. And good police work by our correctional officers equals safety and security that we must provide for our jails and prisons. Hello, I'm Gary York, True Prison Stories. Please subscribe if you like this video. I wanted to take a few moments to discuss the things that we can do in today's 2019 world of corrections to help gather intelligence that we need to prevent escapes, to prevent contraband, to prevent injury to our staff. And it is very important that every officer is trained in this area and knows what to look for, what to do, and by all means, write an incident report on any information you have received, any intelligence you have received that is a threat to our security. Write an incident report, turn it into your supervisor, and keep a copy. That's right, keep a copy, because if it is determined later that you have knowledge of a security threat or violation and did not report it, it could cause an issue, and we don't want that to happen. We want you to be awarded and rewarded for finding out things that we need to know. So let's start. In today's world, with all the technology we have, all the Facebooks and cell phones and all these things going on, our intelligence gathering for corrections extends way beyond the jail walls and the prison walls. Now, it extends outside to the social media, to the inmates' families, to the inmates' friends, to the visitors, and it extends to other agencies. One thing that we need to be aware of when we work in the jail and prison system, we must work very closely with probation and parole. And why do we need to work closely with probation and parole? Well, if you look at the history of our inmates, all of our inmates have either been in jail, prison, or probation, or all three, which is the case in most incidents. And probation and parole has a lot of information that we can use if we suspect an inmate is doing something illegal within the prison walls. The files in the probation office have a lot of family history. Believe me, I was a felony probation officer between working as a correctional officer in a state prison and going to the prison inspector's office, the inspector general's office. So I can tell you right now, that probation file, which should carry over to your classification, the information in there, if you don't find what you need in your classification records at your institution, get with the probation and parole office and work with them. They have a lot of valuable information that we need and can use from time to time. So let's talk about some things. Well, we have our standard specialized groups for gangs. We have our response teams for escapes and so forth. So we do have some specialized groups set in place that it's their job to work diligently to gather information on gangs and so forth. We have our institutional inspectors. We have our senior prison inspectors. We have our jail detectives who are there to also gather information, monitor inmate phone calls, and gather information and investigate and stop incidents from occurring. But the strongest line we have is the Frontline. The Frontline correctional officers are there every day on the compound, in the dorms, in the pods with the inmates, and they see what is going on. So what can you do as an officer to identify issues that we must look into? Well, number one, watch your daily activity of your inmates. Know your inmates and see if any of their activities change. Watch them in their social world. Watch them on the rec yards. Who are they hanging out with? Are they hanging out with gang members? Are they hanging out with known compound drug dealers? Know your inmates, know the moves they make, and know the changes they are making. and keep a mental note of this and watch them and see if anything they do compromises security, hiding something, sneaking around, and notate their activity on an incident report. Also, searches. Yes, just your standard cell searches, your standard pat-down searches, surprise searches. Don't announce the search. Do random searches daily, different cells every day, different pat searches every day, and you will be surprised at the things you will find and the intelligence you can gather just from doing this. And then make sure you write an incident report and bag and tag whatever evidence you find and turn it in so that it can be investigated and further by your supervisors or by investigators or jail detectives. Never think that anything is not important. An odd phone number in conjunction with some verbiage that just doesn't sound right. That little piece of paper that you found in an inmate's property could lead to a huge bust. Okay? That cell phone you find doesn't stop at the cell phone. You write your report, you bag and tag the cell phone, you turn it in. It should never stop at the cell phone. Okay, good, I got another cell phone off the property. Someone needs to investigate the phone. The phone numbers need to be investigated. If we have to do a subpoena for the phone records, if we can. I know a lot of these phones are throw-down phones. Untraceable phones now are out there. But if we can, we must do everything we can to get the phone numbers off of that phone. Then we need to take those phone numbers off of that phone that we've confiscated from the inmates. And a good investigator will cross-reference those phone numbers. He'll put those phone numbers in the inmate phone system to see if they've been contacted by any inmates in that jail or that prison. If they have been contacted by one of those inmates in that jail and prison, we will now go to those specific inmate or inmates and monitor their phone calls for a while, past and present and future phone calls. We won't rush into anything. We're going to listen to see who they're talking to, what they're talking about, and that could lead to some big things. That could lead to some big information. So don't think that cell phone is done when you find it. We have a lot of things to do afterwards. Facebook, social media. If you see something posted anywhere in social media and you say, hey, that inmate is at the Texas Department of Corrections, or that inmate's in the Florida Department of Corrections, report it immediately. Just because you're off duty and see something does not mean it's still not our duty 24/7 to serve and protect our community and serve and protect our fellow officers. And make sure that we get that phone from that inmate, and we get that inmate and we question that inmate, and we search that inmate's property, and we check that inmate's mail, and we check that inmate's phone calls and phone records. It's a very much larger picture than just doing a routine pat search and cell search. You never know what you're going to find. And of course, you're going to find drugs in some of these searches. And we'll confiscate those drugs, bag them, tag them, and do our report. And these drugs now can be used because we can talk to the inmate about possession of illegal narcotics, and you never know what happens. Snitches get stitches, but we do get a lot of information from inmates once we bust them with drugs in their possession. And they have 2 years left, a year left. They're thinking about going home. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to tell you things. They're going to give you information to try to get the state attorney's office to lower the charges. Work with them on a plea deal. There's a huge, much bigger picture out there that we have to look at with intelligence gathering and how it works. And I'm going to point out as many as I can off the top of my head right now, but I want you to think about this and think about how important good police work by correctional officers is to the safety and security of our jails, prisons, our staff, the other inmates not involved in these shenanigans, and to our public, to the community we protect. You have to remember that a lot of these things that we want to prevent also include the big word, the escape, the word escape. A lot of these things inmates are doing are to set up an escape, and that is something that will lead out to the public and has led out to the public and has caused a lot of injuries and even deaths to innocent people when inmates escape from the prison. That is why intelligence gathering, again, is so, so important to the safety and security of everyone when we deal with prisons. Now, we also have to look a little further, and we have to look at inmates' accounts. There are many people that the inmates are working with on the street who have stolen credit cards, fraudulent credit cards, or they've gotten the names and social security numbers of people on the streets and have made or applied for credit cards. And they're using these credit cards to send to the inmates, send money to the inmates' accounts, to their commissary accounts or whatever. And the inmates are buying commissary, of course, but they're also taking this money that has been sent into their account from fraudulent credit cards and sending it back out to people on the street so that they can have their share of the money and part of the deal. And we have to watch inmate accounts closely. So if you are in the position at your prison or jail that you're going to be able to investigate these accounts, we must monitor inmates' accounts. We must see, are they all of a sudden getting larger amounts of money in and more frequently than normal? Are they now sending larger amounts of money out to certain people? And who are those people? And we want to identify those people. And we want to expand with the mail search and the monitoring of phone calls, once again, to see if we have something going on. At the end of this video, I'm going to put a very short newscast video of a Pasco County Sheriff group of inmates that were doing just what I'm talking about. And I'll let you watch that and you'll see how they did this little operation. And it's going to give a point and case to what I'm talking about. How important it is to monitor inmates' accounts. You know, you can set up the account for the inmate and just ignore it. And we're not there to do that. We're there to watch. We're there to make sure that everything is on the up and up. And we want to make sure we know where the inmate's money is going. We don't want the inmate's money to be illegal. We don't want the money to be going to drug dealers on the streets. And in some cases, it has happened. We all know this. We do not want the inmates sending money to a corrupt officer. Things we have to think about. Don't want to think about them sometimes. Wish we didn't have to. But we have to, folks. That's our job. And I'm telling you, from the corrections front line all the way to the investigators, we cannot have laziness. We cannot have inattentiveness. We must know our surroundings. We must know what the inmates are up to. We must gather intelligence. And just in case you didn't know, a lot of the intelligence we gather in the jails and prisons is confidential. It's protected under state and federal law. Now, of course, if we make a good bust, we're probably going to have to testify to the intelligence we gathered in a courtroom, and that's fine. We did our job. We made a good bust, and now this confidential information may have to come out in the courtroom, but that's what we want. We want to look good in a courtroom. We want to look strong, and we want to show the courtroom jury that we know what we're doing as correctional officers, and we did good police work. And also, if it's not a jury trial and it's a plea deal, we want to show the judge that we know what we're doing and we know what we're talking about, and we're confident. The intelligence we have gathered, we are confident, we are sure, and we did our job correctly. So again, see how big the picture gets? It even ends up in a courtroom one day where you may be testifying about your intelligence gathering and what you discovered and what was found. And many of the witnesses that could end up in the courtroom will be, first, the frontline corrections officer who did good police work and discovered something. Then it may go to your evidence handler. Then it will go to your investigator and on up the ladder. So this is why intelligence gathering is so critical and so important, because it stops contraband, it saves lives, protects the community from escapes and danger, and many, many other things that we could list. There's a long, long list of things that we can do. Now, in working with other agencies when gathering intelligence, okay, here are some of the agencies that you can work with. And of course, get with your supervisors. We don't want anybody's toes stepped on. So get with your supervisors before you go to any outside agencies, because they'll tell you if they want you to do it, or if they want their investigator to do it, or if they want the warden to do it, or the chief to do it if it's a jail. So don't step on anybody's toes. Don't go outside the agency without permission. But some of the agencies that we can use to work with in our intelligence gathering. The United States Postal Inspector's Office. I use them many, many, many times to help trace a letter. You know, many of the addresses on the letters coming to inmates are false at times, and we need the help of the U.S. Postal Service. Your local law enforcement agencies, Sheriff's Department to help you, Police Department to help you. If we have a suspected family member or friend or corrupt officer out on the street doing things they should not be doing, that we have made a connection with the inmate. Of course, you're going to go through your supervisors, your jail detective, or your prison inspector's office, okay, before we go out and do these things. You also can work, as I said, very closely with your probation and parole folks. Many, many people that are on probation are dealing drugs with inmates on the inside. So we have a connection and a quick way to the jailhouse. Because if someone's on probation, you don't need but a preponderance of the evidence, 51% of the evidence, to get an arrest warrant through probation and parole. They can immediately have someone picked up. So if our suspect that is dealing with the inmates inside the prison is on probation, that is the fastest way to get them off the street. We don't have to wait for the investigation to be complete and the state attorney to issue a warrant. And in other cases, we will have to wait for that process to be done. So work with your probation and parole office very closely. Lots of intelligence between the prison, the jail, and probation and parole that we can share among each other and work together with. You also have your U.S. Marshal's Office. You have your FBI, okay? You have searched and gathered intelligence that inmates are preparing fake tax returns using other people's names, other people's social security numbers. Those tax returns, by the way, are more than likely being carried out of the prison, not through the mail, because we monitor the mail if we're doing our jobs correctly. While I'm on that topic, mailroom, very, very important that you monitor the mail and scan the mail. You are a high point for intelligence gathering in the mailroom, whether you're a civilian employee working in the mailroom or a uniformed officer. Now, as we say, FBI can get involved because now we have an IRS fraud going on inside your jail or prison. Besides FBI, you're going to call the IRS themselves, and they have the option of sending their IRS investigator or having you forward all information with an investigative report to the IRS. And in that investigative report, a good investigator will have all the evidence marked as an exhibit, And they will have statements from the frontline officers who did the good police work, because those frontline officers are now witnesses in a federal case with the IRS and the FBI. So, and that's not the only area that we may be involved with the FBI. Or in Florida, it could be the FBI or the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Here in Florida, they are the police of the police, and they run statewide. And you have statewide agencies as well. Because we can discover child pornography, letters that indicate someone on the outside is dealing in child pornography, human trafficking. Folks, this intelligence gathering goes way beyond what you can imagine. Open your mind and think about all the things you can discover by gathering intelligence just on your daily normal duties as a correctional officer. Okay? You can find information on human trafficking. We have women's prisons across the country where there are female inmates hired and recruited by human traffickers on the streets to find women that have no place to go, no home to go to, and they are soon going to be released from prison, and they are waiting like vultures out there to get a hold of them for human trafficking. And you, as a correctional officer, can discover this type of thing, report it to your supervisors, and keep a copy of your detailed incident report on what you found. We don't want that incident report to get lost somewhere in the chain of command and not make it to the right people, because that critical information regarding human trafficking, pedophiles, child pornography that you as a frontline officer just discovered needs to get in the hands of local law enforcement, probation and parole, because some of these names that you discover may be on probation, FBI, fingerprint check, photo checks, anything. So our intelligence gathering as correctional officers doing good police work goes a long way and can save a lot of lives. It can help a lot of people. See, what we just discussed just then, you can save the life of a child. You can save the life of a child that's being looked at by a sex predator or a pedophile. You can save the life of a person that is about to be used in human trafficking. We have a lot of responsibility as a correctional officer, a lot of responsibility. And we have right in our grasp, within our reach, a lot of information hidden in those inmates' property, hidden in all the hiding areas in the cells where the inmates are, hidden in their workplace. Now let's get to their workplace. Information gathering in the workplace. Some prisons have eyeglass shops. Some have welding shops. Some have woodwork shops. Some have information technology shops where they have computers, and inmates are actually working with computers that are supposed to only be able to work within the prison compound, and we very well know that these computers are sometimes hacked by inmates, and they actually can get to the outside world. They've already done it with these tablets, and I've had cases in the Florida prison system where they've done it with the computers, the desktop computers as well. That's why it's so important that our civilian teachers watch very carefully. They're the educators in these departments, so they should know more than anybody what's going on and how things can be hacked, or if something looks wrong. And they should be reporting to the frontline correctional officer as well that they think something's wrong and inmate so-and-so is doing something wrong. The law library, where we have inmates working in the law library, that is used a lot for illegal activities. So all these things we have to think about. Don't just go to work daily with blinders and say, I'm going to go, I'm going to do my count, I'm going to feed, I'm going to do my count, I'm going to feed. open your mind, get to work, okay? It'll make your day go by much faster, and you'll save somebody's life. And I hope that these last 25 minutes, I have named some things that put a spark in your mind and spark something that you didn't think about. And of course, we have to learn from each other. There is no way one person knows everything. No way. Don't ever let anybody tell you they know everything. Yes, you have people that have been in the system 30 years. Many of them know a lot and are very sharp. Many of them have just worked with blinders and have not opened their mind to the things that can be done. So let's learn from each other. If a 1-year officer teaches me something, I'm going to take it and be happy. If a 30-year officer teaches me something, I'm going to take that information and be very happy. Let's help each other. Nobody is better than anyone else. Let's work together, because we have to work together as a team to defeat these inmates and their shenanigans. I'm calling them shenanigans. They're illegal activities. We cannot overcome the illegal activities of the inmates' operations within the prison system if we do not work together as a team. We are a team when we are on duty, and we must remain that way. We don't have to see each other after work, but when we're on duty, we have to work together as a team. So get that intelligence gathered, folks. Get those incident reports written. And supervisors, listen. When you get an incident report handed to you with possible security threat information, whether you think this is real or not, that is not for one person to determine. Get that incident report up the chain of command, and everybody in the chain of command should look at this incident report seriously and make sure that it's investigated properly before dismissing it. It's not our choice to dismiss it. We have to investigate and either prove it is happening or unsubstantiate it and say it's not happening. But we need something formal done. Just being a one-person boss and saying this isn't happening, I don't believe it, I'm not going to forward it, that doesn't work, folks. It's got to be investigated. Thank you for watching, everybody. Take care, stay safe, and God bless.
You say they've broken up an elaborate money laundering scam, and it was happening at the county jail. Investigators have made one arrest, and they have warrants out for 7 other former inmates. 8 on Your Side's Chip Osowski has more from Pasco County.
8 on Your Side wanted to know, how was this happening while the inmates were in a secure facility? Investigators say they were getting money deposited in their accounts using the JPay app.
All of the deposits that were made onto their commissary accounts were made by stolen credit card and identities.
37-year-old Kaloma Kamu was the first one snagged by deputies. They tell us once he and the other inmates had the cash in their accounts,
the inmates were then asking for their commissary accounts to be released, and the funds were being released to the outside to an unknown individual.
I did speak with one former inmate who didn't want to go on camera, but he told me he was aware of this scam happening at the jail, and he knew that the sheriff's office was cracking down on it. In Land O'Lakes, I'm Chip Osowski, 8 on Your Side.